coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. They all getting featured. Said it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all three speakers. Coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. It's your girl Tanesha, straight magic. The greatest book reviews, let's get at it. She not here to offend, she just honest. Bringing words that may leave you astonished. And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just roll. And it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip, coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Said it's Tanesha's tip, coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. Hey. It ain't for the clout, it's honest. See the truth when you look beyond it. Book shows, not to mention movies. She give or take in a great way, you'll see. Check it out, see if you agree. If you vibe, yes, it's meant to be. And baby, you don't even need the script. Learn it all with Tanesha's tips. Tanesha's tip, coming all three speakers. Yeah. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured.
Hi, and welcome to Tanesha's Tips. Today we are going to be reviewing Divorced Sisters episode 5, A Breath of Fresh Air. Okay, so y'all know when we left off on episode 4, it ended with Rashida and Pastor Jeff making it home, and he left her in the car, right? Just got out the car and just slammed the door, and she in disbelief talking about, he didn't open the door for me. Girl, y'all done had a blowout or whatever, and y'all keep having blowouts, and you think he gonna open the door for you? Dramatic, but whatever. Anyway, so the first scene is the jail. Now, Tiffany comes up to Geneva and she says, you know, it's been a terrible night or whatever, and Geneva is like, yeah, it has been one thing after another. Okay. Anyway. So Tiffany also says, you know, are you going to call Rashida and find out what's going on with the white girl? And that's what she said, the white girl. She didn't call her by name, Lindsay, or she didn't call her the next or nothing like that. So she said, nah, I'll call her later or whatever. She said, yeah, it is kind of early. So then Tiffany asked her about Javon and why she ain't never told her about him. And Geneva is kind of like, oh, you know, I know him from, you know, just in the courthouse or whatever. Girl, why is you lying? Why is you lying? Anyway, Tiffany, I'm digging her because she is very intuitive, because she's like, know about all of that or whatever. You acting strange, but she was like, but he is fine. And so Geneva is like, oh, okay, you know, and she kind of not giving her anything, but again, she's suspect, so she like, something ain't right with that, but you ain't telling me, but I'm gonna find out. But anyway, she lets it go. Javon comes back out and says, you know, I think that they're gonna let her go in a second or whatever. And they're like, okay, cool. So they're gathering their stuff, and Naomi comes out from behind, you know, the thing, and she looks down at herself and says, they tore my dress. And Geneva says, oh, come on, we'll help you with that or whatever. And slightly off topic, but can we talk about these ugly shoes that Geneva got on with this green dress? I don't know. They just screaming like Monica shoes that she had on them at 14 years old on the side of the street. I know they meant to come off as silver or something, but they look like them white sandals that she had on the side of the street. So she grabs her dress, the back of her dress, as if it's a train and she about to get married or whatever, and they all go and get in the car. All right. So then we just switch over to Bridget, because, you know, she was the one that actually made it home last night. And so she's dealing with her man-child, Vaughn. She is actually on the phone with Tiffany, asking her, you know, what's going on or whatever. And they agreed to meet over at Naomi's house because Javon just came out and said that, you know, she's going to get out in a minute. So she says, okay, I'm trying to get in touch with Rashida, but she ain't answering her phone. So she said, I'll meet y'all over there. So anyway, in the process of her, getting ready for work and telling her she's going to meet him, she goes over and she says, oh, Lord, what am I going to do? Because she looks down at Vaughn. She thinks that he's asleep, but he looks at her and it's like, man, why are you making up all that noise? And she like, excuse me, I'm in my room and I'm getting ready to go to work. And he's like, yeah, but do you have to do all that and hear you all on the phone and everything and being loud? As if this is his place and he pay rent and he got a right to be in the bed all day. So she was like, excuse me? But she never put her foot down. So then she ends up telling him that he needs a job, and he tells her that she sounds just like his mama or whatever. And she was like, well, if I sound like your mama, then you need to go back with her or whatever. And you right. She told you right or whatever. Anyway, so she ends up leaving out because the doorbell rang, and he was like, are you gonna get that? So she went to answer the door, and it turns out to be Calvin. Now, I just found out this man's name, but his name is Calvin, and he was the guy that Vaughn was working for when he quit, and also the guy that he actually ignored at the banquet. Anyway, so Calvin, when she answers the door, she's like, oh, well, how can I help you? And he was like, I came over here for my key. I don't have my key, and he has it. I can't get in the safe, and I'm not trying to break in my own stuff or whatever. And so she says, okay, well, come in. I'm going to go up there and ask him. So she goes upstairs, and she wakes him up. She has to hit his feet to wake him up, and he jumps out of his sleep. He's like, what? I thought you was gone. And she was like, well, Calvin is here, and he needs his key. He was like, I don't have his key. So anyway, it's a back and forth or whatever. So she goes back and tells Calvin, Vaughn said he don't have the key. And he says, well, listen, let me go and ask him. So she lets him in, and he follows her in the bedroom or whatever and try to confront him. And Vaughn jumps up. You let this N-word in my bedroom? And she like, excuse me, this is my house. And he said, I just need my key. He was like I told her, I don't have your key. So like I said, it's a back and forth or whatever. Then all of a sudden, Calvin was like, you are a little boy trying to be a man, a real man. And he was like, what do you mean I'm not a man? He said, a real man don't sleep in the bed while his wife or his girl goes to work or whatever, and she's paying all the bills. I'm like, amen to that. So anyway, he pushes him. Calvin pushed him or whatever because he's all up in his face. He done jumped out of bed and got all in Calvin's face, and Calvin pushed him real hard, and so he fell back on the bed. So now his manhood is bruised or whatever. So now he want to tussle. So anyway, they going back and forth, and Calvin say, you know what? I could take you. I could, do some things to you, end you or whatever, basically. Anyway, in their little first half of their tussle, Bridget thinks that she's gonna help or try to stop them or whatever, and then she gets pushed. I mean, typical like little fight scene where the female is like, no, don't do this, don't do this. Anyway, so she gets pushed on the floor, and they look over and they like, see what you did? Anyway, this gave Vaughn time to kind of get the upper hand on Calvin or whatever, and he goes to smash him in the face and stuff. And Calvin got a little bit, some punches in or whatever, but then he kind of let off or whatever. And here come Vaughn with this big platter that he's gonna hit up over the top of the head. And Bridget was like, no. She stopped him. And so then he got all emotional, talking about, I could end you. And then he walks out the house or whatever because he's all mad. So then she runs over to Calvin, and Calvin's like, don't touch me. I could have ended him if I wanted to. Now, I'm like, how? That man just overpowered you and you was looking crazy or whatever. Anyway, he brushed off and he walks out after him. And all I'm thinking is, did Vaughn just walk out before you? You sure he ain't got a pow somewhere, and then all of a sudden you walk through that door and then you fall and drop to the floor? But that ain't happened. That's just my imagination, you know what I'm saying? But Tyler Perry ain't asked me nothing. Let me keep going. So anyway, next scene, we jump back to Geneva's house, right? And it is Will in the kitchen, and he immediately texts Geneva, and he says, hey, are you okay? And she says, yes, we about to get ready to leave and go to Naomi's house. She's getting out real soon. He says, okay, I'm about to get ready to go wake up Anika, which is a baby, and get her ready for school. She says, okay, I'll be home shortly or whatever. Okay. So then we jump to Pastor Jeff. Okay, he's sitting on the side of the bed texting somebody, and the son walks in. He says, Dad, I need some money. And he was like, what time of morning is this? And, trying to get him to say good morning or whatever. And that's not the way he's supposed to greet me or whatever. So he says, well, what do you need money for? He says, well, I need a new laptop. It's broke. He said, you get an allowance. Okay. I got all kinds of thoughts. Yes, he should not have come in his room in that way. He should have came in and said, hey, good morning, Dad. How you doing? Or whatever. But what threw me with Pastor Jeff after that was him telling the little boy he gets an allowance. My thought is, well, how much is this little boy's allowance? And can I get in on it? Because I ain't getting no allowance when I was growing up, but I'm sure it wasn't enough. Even if I did, it wouldn't have been enough to get no computer, but I digress. Anyway, let's keep on the subject. So anyway, he asked where the mom is or whatever, and again, he gets brushed off or whatever, and after the little boy leaves, then he makes a phone call and he tells the guy, whoever is on the phone, was like, how you feeling today? Now, it just didn't sound right for a guy to be asking another guy how he feeling in the way that he asked him, right? Now, you can, but it was very relationship-esque, if I have to say that. Anyway, he was like, oh, I'm feeling fine. I'm getting ready to go to the gym. I'll go to the gym before I get to work, and I'll call you when I get in the car. All right, so then next thing is, Tiffany, Geneva, Javon, and Naomi make it to Naomi's house, okay? Naomi goes in the house, and Geneva is right behind her. Javon says to Tiffany, I'm gonna call a car to get home or whatever. And she says, are you sure? And he says, yeah, I'm gonna let y'all go ahead and handle everything or whatever. I need to get to work or whatever. So she says, okay. So then he asks her out. When all the while they having this conversation, Geneva stops in the door instead of going in with Naomi, and she ear hustling. She's trying to see what they doing or whatever. And, they're trying to make plans and, for a date and everything. He asked her to dinner and she's like, oh yeah. And he actually, they exchanged numbers or whatever. All the while, her girl in the background, he noticed her. And then Tiffany also looked back to see what he was looking at, and it was her. So then she says, well, Tiffany says, well, do you want to step inside and wait for your car? And Geneva busts in and says, oh, no, that's not a good idea. Girl, what? Anyway, so he said, no, my car is 5 minutes away. It'll be all right. So anyway, they end up exchanging numbers and whatnot and making a date for dinner that night. So they go in. As soon as they go in, Tiffany said, well, why wasn't it a good idea for him to come in? And now, Geneva, you ain't doing a good job convincing Tiffany that she need to be careful trying to talk to Javon. You look suspect. You sound suspect. And Tiffany is kind of intuitive. I'm kind of feeling her right now. Before she could answer, Naomi stepped in and was like, see, look at my house. Look what they did to my house. So now it's all about Naomi, and it should have been because they're for her. So they didn't answer none of that. Then shortly after they came and sat on the couch, then Bridget knocked on the door. They opened the door for her, and she came in and she looking around like, oh my God, what happened? And she telling them they took all my stuff and this is what he did before I got there, and that's the reason why I feel the way I feel or whatnot. Okay, so in the midst of trying to make her feel good, she lashes out at Bridget and tell her that that's why she with a man child and she needs to get somebody else or whatever. And that's when Tiffany stopped her and said, no, we not gonna hurt each other because you hurting. And she said, you right, I'm sorry, but she meant that, right? So then they looked down on the floor and saw that one of the figurines that was Naomi's grandma's was broken. And she said, see, that was my grandmother's or whatever. And Geneva picks it up and says, well, I could get it fixed for you. And she was like, that's not the point, Anyway, it was dramatics or whatever. So she again apologized to Bridget for, saying that or whatever. Tiffany also told her, she said she wanted to sue. Naomi said that she wanted to sue Franklin. And Geneva's like, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. Tiffany said, now you need to stop sugarcoating stuff. Now, I'm with you when you write. And right now, in this whole series, the one person I can rock with right now is Tiffany. Okay? Because she seemed like the one that be telling folks the way it is. So she says to Geneva, stop sugarcoating and tell her the truth. So Geneva says, what you did was criminal, and you did that, and it's on camera or whatever. Do you know that it went viral? And she was like, yeah, and so she was like, you cannot sue him because he has more of leverage than you do. So anyway, she was like, okay. And so anyway, they end up taking her liquor from her or whatever and telling her that she's not going to drink herself to oblivion. So anyway, they end up getting up and leaving. As they walking out, Tiffany says, oh goodness. And she's smiling, and they're like, what? She says, Javon has texted me. He says he had a good time and he enjoyed meeting me and he can't wait for our date tonight. So Geneva was like, oh, y'all going on a date? And she was like, yeah, we made dinner plans tonight or whatever. Now she giving her the side eye, whatever. Now Geneva is supposed to take Tiffany back to the church to get her car, but instead she asked if Bridget could take her to get her car, which Bridget is going to the church, so it kind of makes sense, but then it don't, because I came with you, why I ain't leaving with you, just like Rashida said last episode. If I come with you, I'm leaving with you. That is the golden rule with females. So anyway, what ended up happening was she said, oh, well, I got to make some private calls for Naomi. Well, it kind of about sound right, but it don't sound right because you've been acting suspect this whole time. So anyway, Tiffany side-eyed her and was like, okay, I guess so, whatever. So Bridget was like, yeah, I don't mind. So anyway, they get in the car and Bridget was like, ooh, child. She was like, right? She was like, not just that. And so as they drove off, Bridget began to tell her about her morning and what happened with Calvin and Vaughn. And Tiffany was like, oh, And so she was like, he got so angry. That was Bridget telling Tiffany that Vaughn got so angry. She was like, who? And she was like, Vaughn. She said, I don't like that. I don't like that. And she said, yeah, they was all fighting and everything. And I even got pushed and knocked to the ground. And so Tiffany was like, and he was fighting Calvin? And she said, yeah. And so then Tiffany says, that's crazy because Calvin could have ended him. And she was like, what? She said, Calvin is a boxer professionally. And so she said, what? Bridget said, what? And I was like, what? Listen, I'm telling you, I was like the choir back there. What? Anyway, so Bridget said, So Tiffany said, yeah, the only reason why he probably didn't end him was because he didn't want to. He restrained himself. And I was like, he kept saying that. And I was wondering, now, how the little man gonna take him out? But, size ain't got nothing to do with it. The bigger you are, the harder you fall. But when she said that, I said, oh, that's why. It goes back to Will, and he wakes up the baby, Anika, and he tells her, you're gonna have a good day today, and you sleep good. And she's like, yeah. And he was like, you're gonna have a good day, and you know why? She was like, no. And he was like, because I'm gonna take you to a school or whatever. And she was like, well, where's mommy? And he said, oh, well, she left early, but she'll be back or something like that, he said. And he said, how you know she's not here? He was like, she said, because I usually hear her or whatever. And he said, you was sleeping so good, you was knocked out. He said, I walked past your door and I thought it was a dragon in here snoring so hard. And she was like, yeah, it's no dragon, little baby stuff. So anyway, he calls in Sarah, which is the nanny, and asks, can she get her together for school or whatever, while he go and make breakfast. While he making breakfast or whatever, Geneva walks in the same green dress and the Monica shoes. And he asks her how everything is going. She kind of nonchalant, this and the third. I actually skipped a part, but we'll go back to it. So anyway, they have their little small talk, and he tell her, I'm going to take Anika to school or whatever. And she like, okay. Better. So anyway, we fast forward, go to the next scene, and it is Geneva in the car, and she basically then followed Will to the school to drop the little girl off because she still want to know who he calling a pretty lady. Well, he outside talking to, I guess, what looks like one of the teachers, and he got a flower in his hand, handing it to her. And it kind of looked, to me, it looked like a setup. It kind of looked too easy for it to be her, so I really don't think it's her. But they were having a good conversation. At the end, they hug or whatever, and he walks away. That was the end of that. Then we flip back to the kids at Pastor Jeff's house and Rashida. Now we get the daughter. She confronts her dad, and she says, hey Dad, where's Mom? And he was like, I don't know. And she was like, her side of the bed wasn't slept on. So these little kids just be going in and out of their parents' bedroom, like they don't knock or nothing. They just walk in and just look. And she was like, she didn't sleep in the guest room. And he was like, I don't know. Maybe she left this morning. And she said, that's a problem. She said, you be trying to tell half truth so you don't have to tell the truth. She called him on his stuff, right? And he tried to chuckle it off and everything. And she was just looking at him like, what's going on? Are y'all getting a divorce? And he was like, no, we're not getting a divorce. We're happy. Now, why, Pastor Jeff, is you lying to her today? Okay? I mean, that was not a half truth. That was a whole lie. So anyway, she was like, well, I don't understand where mom is or whatever, but if y'all getting divorced, I want to stay with you. And he said, well, why you think we going to get a divorce? She said, everybody getting a divorce now. And so all the while I'm thinking, well, you just said you want to stay with your daddy, but why? He is a whole jerk. But the fact that you call him out and he didn't really have too much to say about it, okay, I guess I would stay with him too, because it seemed like you get better feedback from him than the son do. So anyway, the kids end up going outside or whatever, and as they walk outside, they stop because both of them immediately said, why is she just sitting there? And that is spot their mama in the car just sitting there. And so she looked like she like dazed and confused, but she like on her side, like looking out the window. And they're like, Mom. So she looks at them and she like, what are y'all doing out here? And they were like, well, what you doing out here? She said, I needed a minute. The little girl looking at her like, ain't that the same thing you wore to the banquet last night? And she was like, okay, and anyway, she got real flipping with them or whatever. But the little boy, he said he determined to get some money. So he said, Mom, I need some money. And she said, why you need some money? Well, no, she really didn't ask why she needs some money. She said, did you tell your dad? And, that back and forth thing or whatever. He was like, yeah. She was like, she said something to him of, I ain't giving you the money or whatever. I don't know. Probably the allowance again. I don't know. It wasn't really significant because they was both looking at her like, why is she still in this car? So then she asked them, well, what y'all doing here? They was like, we finna go to school. She said, well, don't y'all need to be getting there or whatever because y'all need to miss the bus. And so anyway, in the midst of them, looking at her or whatever, she tells them to go catch the bus because the bus is coming up the hill. And she says, go. Well, anyway, she had to end up screaming for them to go because, screaming go for them to go. And the girl, she jumped and went, and the boy was just like, I guess, you know what I mean? So anyway, Pastor Jeff comes out the door, right? And he immediately stops when he looks at the car because he sees that the wifey is still in the car. Why was she still in this car? He said, babe, why are you still in the car? All dramatic and everything, like he cared. And so he came and got in the car, and she was like, you didn't open the door for me. And he said, babe, it's an electric car. All you gotta do is push the button and you can get out. I said, no, he didn't. Anyway, so he comes around and tries to open her door or whatever, and she gets out because she was crying or whatever. And she was like, no, you don't care about me. You're very dismissive, and you don't love me, and you do X, Y, and Z, and this and that and the third, and they just going back and forth. And he looking around like, oh, God. She said, see, that's the trouble. You just worried about how things are going to look or whatever. Then his phone ring. So she was like, answer that. And he wouldn't answer. She snatched the phone from him and answered the phone. And this male voice came on talking about, baby, you in the car yet? And she looks and she like, and then it went off. When I told y'all this was a hot, spicy mess, this is a hot, spicy mess. Thank y'all for watching, and we're going to see y'all in the next episode for episode 6. Bye. Okay, sorry. This is future Tanesha. So, at the end of this, it just reminds me of a book that you guys probably should read. It's by Siobhan Latrice, and it's called The Marriage Favor. And it's kind of along these same lines of how this ended. If y'all interested in wanting something real juicy from the very beginning, that's the one to get. Just wanted to plug that, and I'll put the picture of the book so that you guys can see it. All right, till next time.
And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just rolls. Then it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Ha. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured.